Did you know that describing this historical event could have cost you your life? In the 17th and 18th centuries, the Romanov Tsars of Russia were so terrified of any mention of the Russian Homage that they ordered the destruction of every text that referenced it. And if an author dared to resist, they risked having Russian envoys demand their execution. Did you know that a Polish king forced the Tsar of Russia to kneel before him?
Yes, you heard that right. The Tsar of Moscow, a powerful ruler, literally fell to his knees before a Pole.
But what happened afterward is even more astonishing. This story is not taught in schools, and its details will surprise even the most seasoned historians.
Wait until you hear how the Polish Hussars played a role in this, and what the other great powers of the world had to say about it.
Ready to uncover the details you never expected? The Russian Homage of the 29th of October, 1611, is remembered in Polish history as a symbol of the immense power of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth and the humiliation of Russia. The main elements of this event included the public submission of Tsar Vasili IV Shuisky and his brothers, Dmitry and Ivan Shuisky, to King Sigismund III Vasa and his son, Prince Władysław IV. The entire ceremony took place at the royal castle in Warsaw, and the scene is remembered as one of the greatest triumphs of Poland over its eastern neighbor. But how exactly did this come about? What were the behind-the-scenes details of this spectacular event? To understand what led to this moment, we must briefly examine the historical context. At the time, Russia was going through one of the most turbulent periods in its history, the so-called Time of Troubles. This was an era of chaos, power struggles, false Tsars, and general instability following the death of Tsar Ivan IV, known as Ivan the Terrible. Seeing an opportunity, the Poles decided to intervene in the fight for power in Moscow. A crucial turning point was the Battle of Klushino in 1610, where Polish forces under the command of Hetman Stanisław Żółkiewski decisively defeated a much larger Russo-Swedish army. Following this defeat, Vasili Shuisky was dethroned and taken prisoner, along with his brothers. The homage itself took place the following year, in 1611, and was part of a political spectacle designed to showcase the power of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. Hetman Żółkiewski, who had brought the captured Russians to Warsaw, led a triumphant procession down Krakowskie Przedmieście to the royal castle. There, in the Senate Hall, in the presence of King Sigismund III, Prince Władysław and Polish senators, Tsar Vasili IV and his brothers were publicly humiliated. The ceremony was rich in symbolism. Vasili Shuisky, who had once ruled over Moscow, now had to kneel before the Polish monarch. Dmitry Shuisky, the commander of the Russian forces at the Battle of Klushino, fell to the ground and bowed his head to the floor, a gesture of total submission. Ivan Shuisky went even further, bowing 3 times to acknowledge Poland's complete dominance over Russia. During the homage, Vasili Shuisky, despite being defeated, tried to retain a semblance of dignity. He spoke little, but his gestures, touching the ground with his hand and kissing it, conveyed more than words ever could. It was a moment that demonstrated that even the Tsar of Russia, though humiliated, sought to preserve a fragment of his honor. For Russia, the Russian homage was a crushing humiliation. This event left a deep scar on Russian national pride. Tsar Vasili and his brothers were kept in Polish captivity, which was not only a symbolic triumph, but also a political blow. Russian chronicles rarely mentioned this event, attempting to downplay its significance, but to the rest of the world, it was clear. Russia had suffered a monumental defeat. Other powers, such as France, Sweden, and Austria, watched this event with mixed feelings. Austria, an ally of Poland, celebrated Sigismund III Vasa's triumph, while Sweden and France grew increasingly wary of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth's rising power. The Russian homage was proof that, at the start of the 17th century, Poland was an undisputed power in Central and Eastern Europe. After the Russian homage, the Shuisky brothers were held in Polish captivity. Vasili Shuisky died in Poland in 1612, and his remains were buried in a specially built Moscow chapel on Polish territory. Interestingly, this chapel later became a pretext for numerous Russian demands against Poland. The Romanov dynasty, which took power in Russia after the Time of Troubles, made repeated attempts to erase this humiliation from history and reclaim the bodies of Tsar Vasili and his brothers. In 1635, after the Treaty of Polyanovka, the remains of the Tsar and his brothers were finally returned to Russia. However, the memory of the Russian homage remained vivid in both Poland and Russia. The Romanovs spent years pressuring Polish monarchs to remove all traces of this event, whether in the form of iconography, paintings, or inscriptions. Eventually, during the partitions of Poland, the Russians destroyed the Moscow chapel and other monuments associated with the Shuisky Homage. The Russian Homage became not only a moment of triumph, but also a symbol. In the iconography of the time, the scene of the Tsar kneeling before the Polish king was depicted in numerous works of art, such as paintings by Tomasz Dolabella or sketches by Jan Matejko. Even in the 19th century, during Poland's partitions, the memory of the Russian homage inspired Polish artists and patriots, serving as a reminder of a time when the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth was one of the strongest states in Europe. For Russians, the humiliation associated with the Russian homage was never forgotten. This event became a painful symbol that overshadowed their national pride for decades. They sought revenge in various ways, both diplomatic and military, with the aim of erasing this humiliation from history and restoring their image. In the 17th and 18th centuries, the Romanovs consistently demanded the destruction of all written sources describing the Russian homage. Anyone who published works mentioning this event risked Russian demands for the burning of their manuscripts. There is a known case where a Russian envoy demanded the execution of an author who described the homage, claiming it insulted the Tsar's majesty. The Russian homage was one of Poland's greatest triumphs over Russia and one of the most spectacular acts of submission in European history. The public humiliation of the Tsar and his brothers was a moment that demonstrated the power of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth on the international stage. Although Russia spent years trying to erase this event from memory, for Poland, it became a symbol of glory and a reminder of a time when Warsaw dictated terms to Moscow. Let me know your thoughts on this topic in the comments, and don't forget to check out my other videos. You'll see one of them on the right side of your screen right now. I would be honored if you find it interesting. Thank you for your comments so far. I found some incredibly insightful opinions and information from highly knowledgeable people. I'm so glad you're here and that we can discuss this together.